Hi, guys. Today, we're going to be working on design and development for a personal sex worker website. And we're going to be doing it based on WordPress using the Elementor page builder. So if it has been sort of daunting to undertake making your own website because you think I have to be a coder, I have to know HTML, I have to have all this training and experience and knowledge. No, it is very step by step. And I firmly believe anyone can learn this. And we're going to make it a lot easier for you. So stay tuned. Everyone, just as a heads up, we're doing that special takeaway, but it will be limited to people who are here at that time. Okay, so what are we going to be covering today? We'll go through the basic definitions and terms related to website development, websites in general. We're going to go over a checklist of how best to prepare before you even start getting a domain, hosting, all of that stuff. Before you even start working on a website, like what are the things that are going to set you up for success? We'll go through how to develop a style guide. That's your colors, your fonts, your imagery. We will go through the very step-by-step of setting up WordPress, setting up plugins. Now, plugins are like mini software applications, but we'll talk about that more later. We'll talk about how to set up Elementor in a way that keeps it working to the best it can. What is a theme builder? How do you set that up? Site settings to make your workflow a lot more efficient. We will go through a little mini tutorial of how to actually use Elementor and edit with it. We'll cover basic good design practices to keep in mind as you're designing your website. We'll cover media optimization, which is resizing, compressing, getting your pictures ready for a website. So there'll be a little mini tutorial about that, top 10 takeaways, and then, of course, a big Q&A. So let's dive in. For those of you who are not familiar, I'm Carly David. This is PS Group. We are a creative marketing agency for the adult industry. We are for sex workers by sex workers. So we work exclusively with sex workers, and we work with them on where our services, we do branding, strategic planning, obviously website design and development, all these other amazing services that you are welcome to reach out at any time. We'd love to collaborate with you. And I think that's it. Our website is wearepsgroup.com. We have all of our previous webinars posted on there. You can also check us out on social at wearepsgroup. Okay, so definitions and terms. There is a quote: everybody's a web designer until, they actually try to do it. That is because web design and development is challenging. It is a skill, and it is tough. It is not inaccessible, and it's not unattainable. Like, I taught myself how to do websites. I don't, full disclosure, have like training in this. I learned myself from tutorials, from a lot of reading, from trial and error, from just getting your hands dirty. But there have been a lot of gray hairs accumulated over this time, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned a lot. So be patient. Like, the name of the game with web design and development is patience. It will try your patience. Everyone goes through that 3-week period where you just want to pull your hair out, and it feels like nothing is working and you can't figure it out, and everything you do looks bad. Trust me, it is a rite of passage. And it doesn't really go away either. So I encourage you to have no fear of perfection, because you'll never reach it. It is okay to have like a site that is functional, because that's ultimately what is most important, is functional. okay? Then like pretty design, good SEO, lean coding, all of that, you'll get there. So just be very patient with yourself. Okay. Oh, Merrick, yeah, for real. For real. Like it is, you will epically fail throughout your journey of building your website. That is okay. Be kind to yourself with it and realize it's part of the process. So, some key terms are, what the hell is a domain? We're always talking about domain, hosting, URL. Like, I actually had to look up the exact definition of the difference between these things. So, a domain is literally the name of the website. Okay, it is wearepsgroup.com. That is your domain. It is basically almost like your mailing address. On, like, if someone is going to, snail mail you something, it is your physical address, your mailing address. The URL is the https.wearepsg.com, PS group. It is the name plus the protocol. If there's, a backslash and what is called the URL slug for an internal page, that is the URL. So you can buy a domain. You always want to own your domain, ideally. So you can buy them from GoDaddy, Namecheap. It doesn't matter if the service is adult friendly or not. It's irrelevant because it's just the name of the website. It's a registrar that sells these things. Okay, then if that's a domain, like, what is hosting? Why do I need hosting in addition to a domain? So hosting is literally how and where your website lives. You can't hold your furniture if you don't have a home to hold it in, if that makes sense. So Mojo Host actually has a wonderful article, a blog post. You can just Google it, or I'll try to put it in the chat. But they likened hosting, they use the analogy of real estate. So there are typically like three main types of hosting. So there's shared hosting, which is literally like a dorm. You have your little room, you've got your little area, but everything else is shared. That is obviously going to be your most inexpensive option. Whereas a VPS, which stands for virtual private server, that's like an apartment where it's self-sufficient. You live in your apartment. Maybe you share the washer dryer. Maybe you obviously are going to share the lobby or the entrance area. You're going to share all of that stuff, but it's contained, it's isolated. That is a virtual private server. Obviously the next best one, but also pricier. Then you've got dedicated hosting. So that's actually what we have. If you're just doing like your own website, you don't need it. Like, that's ridiculous. Unless you're doing like a really big clip site where you have tons of content that you need to host. So a dedicated server is literally a piece of hardware that has been given to you, rented to you from the hosting service. So there are a bunch of adult-friendly hosting options. There's obviously, if you have a very robust site where you have explicit content, things like that. Mojo Host is an adult hosting company. We actually host with TMD Hosting. They have been wonderful. I cannot recommend them highly enough. They're a little on the pricier side, but their customer service, their friendliness, we've had nothing but like amazing experiences with them. Then there is HostGator. There's also SiteGround, which we have an affiliate link for. If you want to sign up for SiteGround, it benefits one of our website developers. It's not a company affiliate link, but if you want to support an individual sex worker who is also a website developer, you can sign up via a affiliate link, which I will get to you in the Q&A, or later. Let me get it to you later. Okay, so that is domain, that is hosting. Is a DNS. It's like a phone book, okay? And you have your phone number. However, the domain name system is telling web browsers what that IP address is based on those settings that you indicate that are usually set up for you. It gets very tricky, but when you put in a domain name, it will behind the scenes convert to an IP address, and that's how the DNS system is set up, and then you customize that. Now, a name server is how you tell the domain where its website lives, where the hosting is located. So that's a name server. That's how you can have a GoDaddy domain, but you're not hosting with GoDaddy, you're hosting with Mojo or TMD or any other. You can host with GoDaddy. It is adult friendly. However, in web developer circles, it is also known as slow daddy. So the speed is not great. And in addition, if you're an introvert like me and you don't like speaking on the phone, their customer service, their tech support is usually all phone-based. So proceed at your own caution. Okay, now what are website builders? A website builder is an infrastructure that helps you build the website. You know, it's the construction that you go into to decorate your house and like get the furniture in there and lay it out and everything. So website builders that are very user friendly are Wix, Squarespace, Shopify. Webflow is not as user friendly. It's a little more advanced. There's a lot of coding that gets involved with that. There is an adult friendly CMS called Elevated X that is for like having your own OnlyFans, like your own clip site and store. And then of course there is WordPress, which is what we'll be talking about from this point on. So WordPress, there is a little bit of a misunderstanding with WordPress. It is confusing because there's WordPress.com, which is basically you're hosting a WordPress infrastructure on WordPress.com. That's your hosting. You don't want to do a .com because it is not adult friendly. They will shut down your site. However, you can use the actual WordPress CMS, which is a content management system, and that's literally how you're accessing the back end of your website. It is how you're building it. So the CMS, totally safe. It is an open source software. They are not monitoring you in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so what are WordPress themes? It's basically the framework for the entire website. They are pre-designed. Sometimes you buy them, sometimes they're free, but it does limit the amount of customization you can do. The pros of it is that you've already got a design there. It's ready to go. It's like, you know, out of the box website. Unfortunately, these sites or these themes are typically very, very bloated. Websites, when they have a lot of coding in the back end, it ends up making them a lot slower, which is going to impact your SEO. It's going to drive users crazy when it takes 20 seconds to load. So you always want to keep your website as unbloated, as lean as possible. We're going to talk about how to do that. What is the difference between themes and templates? Well, templates and template kits, which there are a lot of resources and some very good ones specifically for Elementor, including the Elementor Pro library. They have their own template kits that they give you. So what they are it's basically like a kit of all the different pages, the designs. They're pre-built. They're great for inspiration. When I started working in websites, I literally would use these, install them on a blank theme, and then build the like customize the designs a lot more, but using it as a basis. So it's very good with inspiration. However, they can also have a lot of extra coding, and they're not always built in the leanest way. And you have to remove like extra CSS, which is a design language. So they're good, but proceed with caution as well. What are page builders? Okay, so this is WordPress. You don't have to code in this day and age. So there are really good code-free page builders, which means it's usually just drag and drop, which is a lot easier. It's a lot more accessible. And you'll find it very similar if you've worked in like Squarespace or Wix. If you've ever used MailChimp or Constant Contact, any email marketing platform. So the options, there are a ton of options now. Divi, WP Page Bakery, Beaver Builder, and then there's the native WordPress design editor, which is called Gutenberg. We are going to be using exclusively the Elementor page builder, and we are specifically talking about the pro version. Okay, what are your questions? Because I covered a lot there. I know it was a little techie and a little boring, so don't worry, we'll spice it up a little. I mean, my hair spices it up on its own. But what questions do you guys have at this time? Is this all, it's making sense? It will slowly start coming together. Hannah asked, is Elementor Pro free? And how can I check if I'm using WP versus .com if I've already started? Okay, so we will get to the Elementor Pro question in a little bit. It is not free, but we've got some ideas regarding that. How can I check? So with your WordPress, did you pay for your hosting through WordPress itself, or are you paying on like HostGator hosting or something like that? I paid for it through HostGator. You're good. You're absolutely good. They installed the .org, the CMS open source software on it. So you're good. So yeah, Hannah, you're absolutely fine. I'm seeing more questions. In terms of hosting videos on your website, do you recommend any particular adult-friendly content distribution networks? Okay, so content distribution networks, they're usually not related or relevant for adult friendly, because what they're just doing is we're just routing it. Something we're not like, those files are not living with a CDN. Basically what a CDN is that it takes that signal from your website database, those files, and then pinging it to the user's browser. When someone, types in wearepscript.com, it goes over to our server in Amsterdam, it grabs those files, and then on its way back, it is pinging through like 20, 30, whatever databases or delivery ports, where it will then deliver back to the user browser. So that's a content delivery network. They're typically used to speed up delivery because you're trying to deliver it through so many different options that you just get the first one that responds, which is great. So it will be good. However, you just have to make sure that your hosting is adult friendly, because they're responsible for what is like literally on their server. Whereas the CDN is just like the path through which it goes. Okay. So are there any other questions on that? In general, it is not good practice to host your own video content, which gets tricky with adult content. Because typically when people are featuring video on their website, it is hosted on like YouTube or Vimeo or something, or an outside hosting platform, and then it is embedded in your website. Because when you are literally hosting your own video content, it typically kills your bandwidth, your memory, like it eats up all of your disk space. So you have to pay higher costs for servers and everything like that. So you want to host them elsewhere. However, there isn't really an adult-friendly option. If you are hosting video content that is adult in nature, I would recommend hosting with Mojo Host. Because they have the robust ability to handle all that, content, like it's built for that. So we will just go right into how to prepare most for success. Okay, so our prep checklist. Media files, have your photos ready. And you don't want ones that have been like copied and edited and resized, all of that. You want to start with the originals. They're obviously edited by a photographer or yourself. However, you want the highest resolution and the largest size file, because what we're going to do later on is we're going to learn how to prepare those for a website. And if you're using very small images, you can't manipulate them in any way. And when you go down with a website, like you can always go down. You can't go up, or video or photos will get pixelated. It'll get blurry. Then you want to have, skipping to the next, then you want to have your style guideline developed, colors and fonts. You want to know what your sitemap is going to be. What is a sitemap? Sitemap is literally a navigation of all the pages on your website. Okay, so you want to know that you're going to want an about page. You want your rates page. You want your interest page, your links page. You want to know ahead of time how the structure of the site, the architecture is going to be. Rough copy. I highly recommend writing your copy or having your copywriter do it before you get started building in any way. That is because this way you can design around your content, and you're not trying to do it the opposite way where you're like, oh, I've got a block there of 3 sentences. Now I got to figure out something to say so it'll accommodate the design. It also makes the process go so much quicker. It's a lot more streamlined when you already have your content. You're going to want to have all your brand assets ready. So that's a logo. That's if you need like the ad emblems for ad sites that you need to put on your website, you want to have that ready. You want to have your domain and your hosting already purchased, already set up. Now, with your hosting service, you ask them to create a staging environment. What it requires is creating a subdomain, which is still a domain, but it's like, it's a subdomain. So you never want to be designing on a live site, okay? You always want to have it on a development area, because that way people are not seeing as you're like trying things out and the website isn't ready yet. So you want to do it on a staging environment, and your hosting service should be able to help you with that. They will also be able to install the CMS for WordPress on that subdomain in the staging area. You want to have all the zip files of plugins that you need, that you're planning on using. Then you want, if you have any premium plugins, you want the license keys ready to go. This process and this checklist just makes it so much more efficient. And you're not sort of like riding by the seat of your pants being like, oh, I'm designing my about page, but I have no idea what I'm saying. I don't have my pictures. You want to be fail to plan, plan to fail. So how do you develop color? How do you choose colors? How do you choose fonts? Big suggestion, make a Pinterest board. Now we talked about it in the branding workshop. This Pinterest is a great way to just get a sense of your overall vibe, your style, what you engage with, what you respond to, how you want your brand identity to be. So consider color psychology as well. We also talked about this in the branding workshop, but you want to keep in mind what effect you want those colors to have on the user. Like you want them to do X, Y, and Z. So do you want to appear trustworthy and reliable? Usually that's colors of blue. Do you want to be like modern, but very reserved? Then grays and blacks. You want to keep in mind the 3-color rule, which is 60-30-10. So plus a shade of black, a shade of white. With blacks and grays, you don't usually want to go like pure black and gray. It's much more interesting and a little less like garish if you have like a slight hue of black and white. It doesn't have to be pure black, pure white. You want to have, with those colors, you want a primary color. That's the 60. That is the main color on your website. You want to have a secondary that you use sparingly, and then you have accents. Accents are like you could have borders, you have buttons for when you have calls to action, like click here. One of the great ways to develop colors and palettes is using palette generators. I use them religiously to this day. There are a whole bunch of options. We got them on the next slide, some ones that we particularly like. Also, 2 things that I recommend from personal mistakes. Don't build your color palette to match a photo shoot. That way, if you do it, it could look fabulous. Like our social media director, her website, we did base set a color palette, which was exactly matched to her photos. And now we can't change the photos. So you don't want to limit yourself or box yourself in by trying to match. However, you do want to keep in mind your overall personal brand style and typical colors. Like if you're someone who wears tons of black, keep that in mind. You're probably not going to want orange all over your website. But you also want to try to refrain from choosing colors that are just your personal favorite color. You want to prioritize what colors fit for your brand. So I could personally love wearing orange, but orange is not like really great for a marketing agency. So, brand is separate from your personal preferences. Obviously, they're going to cross over and blend, but yeah. This is the color emotions wheel. For people that have attended this live who are not just watching, I will be happy to share this presentation directly, personally with you. Just send me an email afterwards, send us a DM, whatever, and I can share that privately because we don't typically publish these. Now, here are the color generators that are really helpful. Coolers.co. Adobe has a generator. They also have trending palettes for inspiration. You also can use Google Images. Just Google summer feel palette and you'll get all different ideas. Then Canva. actually has a color palette generator where it does match an image. So you might want to pick out a primary color from something that is predominant in your photos. However, or maybe you're using an inspirational image and you want to match that. So Canva has that feature. Now, moving on to typography and fonts. Typography is like what we typically call a font. So it's like an entire font family. Whereas a font is that specific size and weight of the typeface. So it's Arial is a typeface, whereas Arial Bold 20 pixels is a font. There are 5, but 4 main font options. There are serif fonts or typography, typeface. We're just going to say fonts because I'll forget. Serif is where there are those little feet at the bottom. It's typically used for like a sense of history. It is a little bit less modern, but it's like a little bit more formal. There's sans serif, which doesn't have the little feet. It's usually a little bit more contemporary feel. It's also very legible. Those are the most legible fonts. You've also got handwriting, which script. You've got display fonts, which are like, they don't have to be funky, but they're more customized in a way. They're like block letters or that have like special graphics involved. Those are display fonts. There is also slab fonts, which is, you can ignore those. Then you want to choose best practice. Choose 4 fonts, okay? When you are beginning, I strongly, strongly recommend sticking to one typeface and using variations of that same font family. Okay, so you want a heading, which will be, the big one, the titles, the paragraph headings, all of that. You've got a subheading, you've got the text, a body font, and then you've got accents, which are buttons, calls to action. You can Google popular pairings. I do this all the time. You can even ask ChatGPT for like, what font pairs well with Josephine Sans? They will give you ideas. Start basic. Just do a little Googling. You will find things that work well together. Because you want it to be complementary. You don't want it to be clashing or competing for the viewer's attention. You typically want to have like a serif with a sans serif, or you don't want it to be like all handwriting. You don't want your body font to be handwriting or display because you can't read it. Because the most important thing, ultimately, you can have the coolest fonts, but if you can't read them, it doesn't matter. So, font resources. There are libraries you can Google. They're all the Google fonts free. There's also Adobe fonts where you have to have a cloud membership. But fonts.google.com, fonts.google.com, start there. Most people do. You've got fontjoy.com, which helps with the pairing. You can do like a generator for pairings. Fontsquirrel.com, if you see a font, like a picture somewhere, you want to match that. That's really good for that. Then you've got Transfonter, which is the way that you can convert a font file that is meant for your desktop or whatever, for your desktop to a website. It's different file formats. And then we got WordPress setup. Okay, this is where things are going to get a little clunky because I am going to be showing you this. So you can see the WordPress interface, the dashboard, correct? You guys can see that? Thumbs up. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now this is what it looks like when you just install WordPress. Okay. And this is going to be, I'm going to motor through this. So don't worry, recording will be afterwards. You'll be able to reference it. But we do have to go through pretty quickly. So when you set up on your staging environments, this WordPress dashboard, the CMS, you want to just, there's a few things you want to do before you start doing any design or development. Okay, WordPress installs dummy content. So you want to just move that to the trash. Same with pages, because you don't want these pages that literally have no business being there. I'll do that later. Now, appearance. Did we get into themes? Yes. So it comes with these dummy themes, like default themes that are developed by WordPress themselves. You want to delete all but one of these. They release a new one every year. You want to enable auto updates. And then we typically use Elementor built its own theme. So we use that one. Install, it's called Hello Elementor. Obviously my computer knows it, but these are all themes here. You can see that they're all like pre-designed. But again, use the Hello Elementor one. It gives you a blank canvas to have fun with. Activate. You want to activate it. You want to activate it. Are we active? It's installed. Okay, thank you, Carly. We're paying attention. They also add a few plugins that you don't need, like Hello Dolly. I don't even know what the hell that is. It doesn't actually do anything. It's like, hello, we're here. So you can get rid of these. You can delete them because they're not activated. We'll come back to put the other plugins that we need. You've got a user. Now, under settings, you want to go to general. Okay, and this is what it looks like. It gives you a tagline. That's where you would put something like independent Chicago GFE or OnlyFans content creator. Then you want to, it's basically like what gets put in here in this browser tab. You want to make sure that the admin email is what you want. You want to change the default time zone. So let's say we're Mexico City. Okay, Mexico City, thank you. Okay, then you want to save those changes. Then you want to go to reading. You want to make sure, because this is a staging environment, you don't want Google picking up on it yet. You don't want people going to this yet. So you want to toggle discourage search engines from indexing this site. Okay, we're going to come back to reading after we've created pages with the discussion. This is only if you're having a blog. Okay, a blog is based on posts as opposed to pages. Okay, it's because of the duplicating specifics to a post versus a page. Don't worry about it right now. But this is if you have comments enabled and you're allowing users to literally log into your site and leave a comment. Unless you are allowing that, which we don't recommend, it's a lot easier for viruses and hackers and security issues. So if you're not having comments enabled, get rid of all of this. Remove avatars. And that is because all this crap is just going to bloat the site more. It needs code to be able to tell the site, this is what is happening. So you want to remove all that. The more you lean your site down, the faster it's going to go, the more Google's going to like it, the more users are going to like it. Then you want to go permalinks. Now, what is a permalink? It is literally the URL. So they want to know how you want it to come up. You want to click post name. It will default to day and name. You don't want that. You want the post name. So basically, the post name is about, and that is wearepsgroup.com/about. It's telling them to have the slug about versus this was written on this day and time. Okay, so that is the WordPress setup. Now, we're going to go to plugins. We're going to come back here for a sec. Okay, like I said, WordPress, to actually do anything, you need the software installed. WordPress is just the architecture. You want to be able to customize and like actually build and design. So what are the softwares, the plugins that you absolutely need? You need something to save your website and do backups. We recommend Updraft. Okay. Then you've got security. You want to have a shield, a firewall. You want to scan for issues. You want security on the website. So we typically use WordFence. You want to have analytics. You want to have Google Analytics on your website. You want to know how it's performing, how users are working through it and journeying through it, where you're getting referral traffic from, how it's performing on Google, all of that. So there is a Google specific site kit, or you could use Monster Insights, which is also very good and very popular. Then you want a caching plugin. This is a performance plugin. So you know how we said that the browser pings the server's database converts all of the files to HTML, which is the language that the end browser, where it's going to go back, the end browser speaks. So to preempt that, because the website is basically saying to itself, like, well, people are going to access these files anyway, why don't I just prepare them in advance? And that's called cached files. Basically, it's creating those cached versions for faster delivery back to the browser. So if you don't replenish that cache every few hours, like 10 hours, however long you want, the site, if you make updates, it won't reflect those edits. So you don't want to design and develop with this activated. You want to do it at the very end. The options you have are WP Rocket, which is a very premium one. That's what we use. It is very customizable, but it is pricey. There are free versions like W3 Total Cache, WP Super Cache, and then Fast Cache is also used a lot. Then you've got your SEO plugin. We use Yoast. A lot of people really like all-in-one SEO or Rank Math. And then good practice legalities. You should have a cookie consent bar on your website for GDPR and for the California thing. Most of our clients explicitly say they do not want it. Proceed at your own risk. Legally, you really should have it. We should have it on our website. I keep forgetting to put it on there. Okay, we're going to get into how to set up Elementor, how to use it, all of that. I have installed on a different staging environment, just for ease, Elementor. If you get it on your own, you want to activate the Pro license. You have to install both Elementor and Elementor Pro. Now, I didn't install the other stuff just because it's irrelevant for what we're doing today, but this is where you're going to want to, you just say add new to plugins, and it brings you to the repository. It's a plugin directory. So let's say like you want to do Updraft. It'll just, okay, it doesn't want to show me Updraft. Thank you. You just go install. You don't even have to activate it yet. But so with Elementor, you want to go here on the sidebar where a hover menu shows up. You want to go to settings, and we're going to walk through how to set this up. Now, if you don't have a blog, unclick posts here. This is basically telling Elementor where it is allowed to be used. So if you have a blog, activate it on posts. If not, get it out of there. Same with landing pages. Landing pages is like a sub-page, it's like a page, but it's where people are being directed. For the most part, you're not going to have landing pages, you're just going to have pages. Now, checking this box, you want to disable default colors and fonts because it's going to inherit those from your theme, which we're going to create. Okay, integrations. This is where you enable CAPTCHA. If you're using Adobe fonts, you sync them here. If you're using Stripe and it's e-commerce site, that's where you put it. Okay, advanced. Eventually, you can keep it while you're playing with design and stuff, but you want to install fonts locally on your website where you do here. Custom fonts, you want to download the font files. I do recommend that you Google this because I'm going too quickly to really be able to give you a proper checklist and steps. But eventually, you want to disable Google Fonts because they've already been installed here, the web versions of them. So if you're not using the Google Fonts, and you're using locally installed ones, get rid of this. It basically is slowing the shit out of your website because it literally has to say, oh, website, go get the fonts from Google and then come back to me. That's going to slow your site. You don't want that. So you want to disable literally everything you're not actively using. Save changes. Then you want to go features. Now, this gets really techie, so bear with me. Inline fonts icons, you want to inactivate literally all of this. Now, for the purposes of today, we are not going to cover the Flexbox container. It's an alternative structure. We're just going to use the traditional old school structure of building. Now, you will inactivate that. Grid container, inactivate. You want to inactivate literally everything you are not using. So you want to activate the global style. You want to activate optimized DOM, asset loading. Oops, we want to active, additional custom breakpoints. Now, what is a breakpoint? Breakpoint is the dimension of the screen, default screen sizes. So a desktop, usually about like, I guess, 1600 pixels wide, 1800, something like that. You could have widescreen, which is typically like, it is typically like 2400 pixels wide. Then you got tablet and mobile screens. If you are going to be optimizing for widescreen, you want to activate that. If not, don't. Activate to the default new theme builder. You want to you want to activate the hello theme header and footer. You want to disable page transitions unless you're using them. Unless you really, really want them, like it's a big choice. I wouldn't activate them because it just slows things down. It's those transitions like a buffering page where you're going from one page to another, and while it's loading, you've got that stock thing going. Take it out. It slows down the site. It's extra. It's unnecessary unless there is an aesthetic reason for it. Notes, inactivate loop. This is specifically for a blog. Inactivate it if you're not using it. Form submissions, you want to activate, and scroll snap, inactivate. So that's what you need. You want to deactivate everything but the global style guide, the DOM, the asset, CSS, custom breakpoints, new theme builder, header, footer, and then you want form submissions. Cool. Now, then we go to building your theme. What does the theme include? Well, it includes, and this is where Elementor Pro is so helpful because it is literally built into the Pro version that you can build out your own theme based on these features. So you need a header, whether it is a vertical sidebar, whether it's a horizontal traditional header, you want to build the navigation header. You want to build the footer, which is separate from the pages, just in terms of the architecture. There is an error 404 page. We like to customize it, just makes it look nicer. You can have fun with it. But that's its own theme element. Then if you have a blog, you're going to have an archive template, which is like the summary page. It's like the main page where you go, wearepsgroup.com/blog, where you see the different posts that you could read, that you can click on to see more. You need a single post template, which is the theme elements, the recurring elements of those single blog posts. That's getting really more technical. I would not include a blog unless you're like really gung-ho and enjoying all of this. But Elementor.com, their YouTube channel, their blog, their knowledge base will give you tutorials on how to build an actual blog. We are not going to get into that. Then you can build sections, which are just recurring things that are recurring that you want to be able to duplicate, use throughout the site. You could have page templates, which is the theme. Ignore that, but you want to use as much that you can duplicate site-wide. So you could have global widgets, which is like my button is always going to say this. It's always going to be this color. It's always going to be this size, always going to be this font weight. I'm going to use it consistently throughout the site. So instead of building it independently every single time you want to use a button, you can link it to a global widget so that if you change the color down the road, it will change it site-wide. It's not going to be like you have to go and update it everywhere. Okay, then we've got site settings. We're going to go back into a page here because these are the global styling settings. Okay, so you always want to go edit with Elementor, not edit. Okay, if you are building with Elementor and you go edit, you will break your site. I have done it. Clients have done it. It will strip all your formatting. You always, always, always want to edit with Elementor. So this is what a blank page, a brand new page in WordPress with Elementor looks like. This is where you're going to do the fun stuff, the designing and the building. Well, fun is relative. But before you do anything, if you want to go to this little hamburger bar menu, go to site settings. You want to set your global colors, the colors that you are going to use throughout the website. A lot easier to have them saved and ready to go. So you want to indicate those. You want to put in which fonts you're going to use, because again, if you want to change something, it's a lot easier to change it on a global level than independently, individually. Typography. Don't do any of these, I would say. The only one is that if you're using a template pre-existing design, it will give you a default link, color, and font. And that can get really irritating, and it can be like the one of those things that you're like, I'm banging my head against the wall. It is located here. The hover state, I would not specify those on a global level, because like some areas of your website, you want the link to be white. Some of them you want it to be black or color, whatever. So I recommend just defaulting that, taking it out. You can indicate button styles, images, like if all your images have a 2% border radius. Header. I personally like creating the header through the template or the template area with the theme. So I take all this out. I basically do everything I can to give me a blank slate, a blank page that I'm working from the bottom up. Same with the footer here. Your site identity is where you've got your site name, your logo, and your favicon. This right here where it says squoosh and it's got that little circle, that is a favicon. It is different than a full logo. Okay, it should be consistent, but you can also have like, a heart or whatever, but that's how you can always see if someone is on a Squarespace site and they didn't customize the favicon, is that it has that little box right there in the browser tab. Okay, you've already disabled page transitions, lightbox, unless you want your images to pop up into a large screen version, then disable all of this. Take out all of that stuff, because it's, again, extra code. You want a lean site. So we'll update this, and then we will figure out what else we need to do. That's it for the global settings. Okay, we're going to go in to how to actually edit with Elementor. Okay, so this is the Elementor interface. Elementor, the hierarchy is, and this is if you're not using the Flexbox container. We're not going to discuss that. We're just going to talk the traditional page section. Like pages are made up of sections. Sections are made up of columns, and columns are made up of individual widgets. Okay. So this is a widget. This is a section. Now, sections are made up of columns, which is this little bugger right there. Okay, so within the column, that's where your widget lives. Now, with Pro, you've got all these fun widgets to play with. They're like pre-made blocks. Okay, so if you want a header here, and this little panel, this editing panel, is typically what it is. So you specify what it is, and everything on like a global level. It's saying the title. This is where you edit what it says. If I could type correctly. You can justify its center. You can justify, you want to adopt it and adjust it for tablet mode, which you can access down here, or you can access it through the little icon in the editing panel. Now, the second one, is the how does it look? Okay, so you can adjust the color, and that's where your saved colors come in. You can adjust the font, the typography. This is where your saved fonts come in. And you can adjust this based on the size, the viewport, whether you're going to be, and you have to optimize for those different viewports. Otherwise, Google will not like your site. People will not like your site if they're on mobile and it's a desktop version where it's like huge fonts that overlap, like things aren't. Responsive means that the design is built in a way that it automatically will resize, adjust, reformat and design and everything for different screen sizes. So that's a process. Build your desktop first, worry about mobile and tablet, and if you do widescreen later. Again, I strongly recommend going through the actual Elementor video tutorials. They are going to explain this so much better and in more depth than I will. But so this panel, just to finish this up a little bit, this panel is how it interacts with everything around it. So what is a margin? A margin is the space outside of the widget, like the space between the widget and everything else that's around it. It's external. Whereas padding, that is internal. So you see, we'll put 20 pixels. You see how that did that? But if you put a background on it, just so you can highlight it and see, you see how it has the external space. You actually typically want to use padding, okay? Padding is within the container. Okay, so a great beginner exercise when you're just learning and getting familiar with Elementor is you absolutely can take a website, like a basic website design. It's not yours, just some website somewhere. Literally try to rebuild it on your own staging environment. Use it as a practice site. Try to get familiar with how Elementor is structured and how it works and like the best practices by just doing it. Literally, the more you do and just get your hands in and get dirty and drive, the more you're going to get familiar and up to speed, and the learning curve will be better. So that's an exercise that I would encourage you to do. And again, practice patience, because you will hate it. I hate this. Yes. Okay. Basic design practices. Okay. Very, very, very important. Easy to navigate. You do not want pages hidden that you have to go through this link to get to this link. It'll be confusing for Google. It's confusing for the user. Keep it simple navigation. Okay, design hierarchy. That is like, you want a title, you want some big writing, and then you want to have subheaders, and then the body content. That is hierarchy. The title gonna be bigger than the subtitle. You want to tell your user how to prioritize the information that they are consuming. You want consistent colors and fonts, okay? You want consistency across the website, okay? You want it to be brand colors, brand fonts. When it's all over the place, when you've got like 12 different fonts going, no, it's confusing, it looks sloppy, it doesn't, and you're using more code. So keep it simple, okay? White space. You want to make sure that all of your content is not like cramped. You want to give enough breathing room around the content and within the content so that people can scan easily and absorb overall all that information that you're presenting to them. You can incorporate things like texture, like a box shadow, or you could have like a background image that has like a leather feel to it. Play around with it. You really want to make, and especially in our industry, images and visuals so important. You just want to make sure that they are properly optimized, because if you put in an original file that's like 5 megabytes or 12 megabytes, it's going to slow the site down. You definitely want to optimize, which we're about to do. You want to know what your primary and powerful calls to action are. Do you want someone to book you? Do you want someone to join your OnlyFans? Do you want someone to sign up for your newsletter? You have to have powerful calls to action. Does not work having a site and being like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Like, the viewer needs to know what you want them to do upon consuming your website. You're going to want to make sure that it is designed well for SEO. Now, we're not going to get this to it all. There are like entire college courses dealing with design and SEO. But the point is, you can check out a webinar that we have. I think it's like adult SEO or something on our website. It's wearepsgroup.com webinars. And then I think, well, it's on there. Juicing your SEO. Enjoy. It's another very detailed one. But ultimately, keep in mind with your design that you're bringing a story element to it. You are taking the user on a journey. You are guiding them by the hand through the website in the way and the order you want them to take this information. Okay? You want to direct them where to go and at what point in the journey. Okay, so storytelling, it's not like, hi, once upon a time. It is literally like you're creating a story that they are going to experience. Okay, then media optimization. This is the fun part. Okay, so best practices. If you don't optimize your content, it is literally going to just get a sluggish site. That is usually one of the biggest offenses for a slow site, is not optimizing your photo files or videos. You want to resize them first. So 1800, 2400 for banners, for like full bleed. You can Google what best practices for what screen size, because it is not unusual to have a picture that is specifically going to be used in the desktop version, and then a picture that you'll use exclusively for the mobile version, because they're different sizes. So you don't want to constantly have these like 2400 pixel images being used on a mobile where it's like 350 pixels wide. The amount of time it takes to squish it and compress it and reduce the size, that's going to take up time. It's going to bloat your website. So once you resize it, and it's usually web practice is a 3:2 ratio. So you want like 1800 wide, 1200 pixels high. Okay, that is standard website design. Photographers will not do it. It drives you crazy. Your phone will not automatically do it. It drives web designers crazy. But that is best practices. At least put them through production. If you're not going to resize them, it's fine. Then you compress the file size. Okay, so it's not just resizing it, you're squooshing it too. You want to convert to what is called a WebP format. Okay, WebP formats are file formats that can be used exclusively on a website. Okay, this is different than a JPEG, which can be used outside of a website. Whereas WebP is specifically, it's a new generation, and it is so much lighter and smaller files for the output resolution you end up getting. So the only thing is Squarespace, if you're still on Squarespace, it does not support WebP, which is unfortunate, but we're talking about WordPress anyway. So you want to rename your files for SEO. So all those image files, you want to rename them with keywords. It helps. Is it necessary? No, but it's much better than having like DSC 24129. So you want to put like Independent Chicago GFE. You want to upload them eventually to the site You want to replace any placeholder images you have, because this is really for when you have the final design, your final image selections down. You can upload like big files, original files if you want for placeholders, but you definitely want to replace them afterwards. Then you want to remove those image files that you're not using from the media library. Otherwise, bloated site. It's just extra you don't need. Media optimization. I love Squoosh. Squoosh.app. The only problem is you can resize, compress, convert everything right through there. It's free. The only problem is it doesn't do bulk. So it is literally one by one, which we put up with because you get so much greater manipulation of the photo in terms of quality, what it looks like, how it's converting, the size, everything. So if you don't have tons of photos, I would say use Squoosh. Then there's like Tiny PNG. I don't remember if it converts WebP. I'm sure it does at this point. Then obviously Photoshop will do things like that. Okay, so we are almost done. Top 10 takeaways. Number 1, prep. Just do the prep. You will thank me for it later. Number 2, less is more. Start simple, grow from there. Same with design. Simple is better. Like there's a famous web design quote, which I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, web design is completed not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. We have a tendency as designers, as people, to think that more is better. Design, keep it sleek, keep it simple, unless it's your brand, to be like over the top. Think top down. So when you're approaching your website, you want to think, okay, how does the website function, blah, blah, blah? What are the pages, blah, blah, blah? What are the elements on the page, blah, blah, blah? What are think from the top, get granular. Get your hands dirty. You won't know until you get in there and are doing it. You want to design, build for SEO, which is basically what I keep harping on, clean coding, loading time. Don't have extra on there. If you're not using a plugin that you put on there to try, take it out. You want to delete it. I've seen sites that have like 30 plugins in the back end, and it's just like, you're not even using them. Okay, then we go follow design best practices. You want the lean development. You want to optimize for responsiveness, for mobile. Google will not like you if you are not mobile friendly. You want to test everything. If you think it's all working and it's fine, great. Test again. Trust me. Then you want to, of course, practice patience, because no one wants to have to buy new laptops, when they're thrown out the window. So that is the webinar. It was a lot, and we kept it to an hour and a half, amazingly. What questions do we have, my dears? Any specifics or just general questions about design, development, websites? Again, give us a shout directly for the takeaway. And also, I think it's going to drive you crazy. It will. It is okay. It is absolutely okay. We all start there. We all continue there, honestly. But I think all of you are going to do amazing. I'm so glad that you found it helpful and thorough, and I appreciate all of you guys sticking with me here. It was a long one, but keep in touch, because we'd love to see your progress. We'd love to see your final site. Be really proud of yourself. It is a huge accomplishment just tackling this subject. So there are questions. As for hosting content on the site, are there safe payment processors if we want to have a clip site? Yes, that is a whole other conversation, but yes, there are. I recommend adult-friendly payment processors like SegPay. There's also CC Bill. I would not recommend tackling that first. If you're going to be dealing with payment processors and things like that, you're definitely going to want to have support throughout that approval process. And like building a site that is e-commerce is a lot more complex. So I recommend getting some outside help with that for sure. But there are definitely payment processors that are adult friendly. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. It was great having you here today. I think we definitely are ready for more than dry shampoo. I really appreciate you guys. Again, this is Carly David, PS Group, Creative Marketing Agency for Adults. And I appreciate every single one of you. Now go out and design your perfect site. Or if you realize you don't want it, go ahead, give us a call. All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.